Welcome back to a video that didn't take me over a month to put out. It's like a Christmas miracle. As some of you may know, this video is an extension of my previous one where I made a frame from scraps. In that video, I mentioned that I didn't buy a new piece of glass or acrylic because I already had a few huge slabs that you see here that were recovered from a pop-up shop that had shut down. The problem was, it was all dented and scratched up, and there wasn't a single section anywhere that was immediately usable without needing some serious work put into it. So I decided to make this video so that I can walk you through the acrylic polishing process separately, because that's really its own entire thing and deserves its own focus. Now, my initial instinct was to just buy new unscratched pieces of acrylic, because I didn't think that I would be able to salvage what we had here. But my shopmates convinced me that I should try polishing what we had and that it would look as good as new. Our conversation literally felt like the meme, "We have acrylic at home." But, and don't tell them I said this, it turned out that they were completely right, and this stuff that they told me to use does work really well if you know how to use it properly. The whole kit cost under $20, and there's enough in there to polish a few $100s worth of otherwise trash acrylic that we salvaged. That's a really good deal in my opinion. So I want to show you how I did that so that maybe you can salvage something that you thought would otherwise have to be replaced. I'll be doing this on a glaze for my picture frame, but the same process should work for anything that is made out of similar plastic, like light lenses on cars, plastic casings for displays. You get the point. First thing I did was find the least scratched area that I could, and then I marked out the size that I needed. To do this, I just traced out the backing that I cut out for my frame because I already knew that that was the right size, so the fewer times that I have to remeasure something, the better. Let's take a look at what we're working with. This was the tricky part of filming. Because the acrylic is clear, it's really hard to show all the scratches on camera because the camera can't focus on something that is transparent. This was really tough. There are a bunch of micro scratches on here that you can't really see unless you super focus, but luckily, which is a weird thing to consider lucky, there are also a few pretty big scratches on here that are large enough to actually cast a shadow. So, I was able to get those on camera pretty clearly. I want to get rid of all of these scratches and make it so that no one can tell that this came from junk. So let's get started. These are the materials that you'll need for this method. A microfiber cloth. The one that I used came with the solutions, but you can also use any kind that you want. A high grit sandpaper. I used 3000. Some kind of small knickknack that you can use as, you'll see in a second. And then last but not least, the Novus 1 through 3 solutions. These are the bread and butter of the process. Okay, so those 4 things are what you need. These next 2 are a nice to have, but you don't need them. 1, a spray bottle, preferably one that mists. But again, if you don't have this, you can just use a cup of water and have that next to you and then sprinkle it with your fingers instead. Just don't waste money on this if you don't already have it. And then a handheld drill with this sponge attachment. I think the proper name for this is the buffing and polishing drill attachment. This one is also not necessary. When I made the frame originally, the acrylic was in equally bad shape, if not a little worse, and I polished it just using the microfiber cloth that I had lying around the shop, and it worked out really well. But I did have to spend a little more time doing it. So this will help move the process along faster, but with a little bit more patience, you can definitely do without it. So again, if you don't have it and you're just polishing one thing, don't waste money on this. First step is to get rid of all of these large scratches that we have. For that, I pour in a bit of the number 1 solution, wrap my 3000 grit sandpaper around the designated knickknack, and start sanding down the large scratches. You want to stay as contained as possible for this part and not sand any extra areas that you don't have to. This step removes the large dents, but at the cost of creating more micro scratches that you'll need to buff out later. So the less work that you make for your future self, the better. I went around and did this to all of the large scratches on my piece. Pretty much anything that I could stick my fingernail in when I ran it across the surface had to go. And if I ever felt like the spot was getting dry as I was sanding, I would just add a little bit more of the number 1 solution, just to make sure that I was wet sanding the whole time. Once you finish with all the large scratches, you'll see that even though the dents themselves are gone, you now have these cloudy patches where the dents used to be. So we switched out one inconvenience for another. It's okay though, because the next few steps are meant to help us fix this problem and also help us get rid of the other smaller scratches that we have in the process. So, 2-for-1 deal. Now we start using the Novus solutions in order in which they were intended. First, we start with number 3. Think of these as high grit liquid sandpapers. Number 3 has the highest grit out of all the 3, so while it'll even out the surface, it won't do much for the shine. Then number 2 and number 1 will come in and bring that shine back and give it that gloss that we look for in plastic. So here I just eyeballed what I thought was enough solution for the surface, and then I grabbed my sponge drill, or microfiber cloth, and just started buffing it out. You want to apply some pressure because that's obviously what's helping to sand everything down. And also, when you notice that the solution starts to get dry, mist it with your spray bottle or other liquid containing vessel that you have instead. Just make sure it doesn't dry out. And then, when you're done doing this on both sides, is where my least favorite part comes in. You want to wipe this down and get rid of all of the solution that you had on there, but wiping it off is surprisingly hard. So instead, I had to run over to the slop sink that we have down our haunted murder hallway and rinse it off there. Okay, so now that I'm back from my run, we can look at the damage. You can see how the material doesn't look as clear anymore, and there are obvious streaks running down it. The number 3 solution definitely removed all of the visible scratches from the acrylic, but in exchange, it made the entire thing cloudier than my judgment. This is where the next 2 steps come in. As you probably guessed, we do the exact same thing as before, eyeball the correct amount of the number 2 solution, and then start buffing it out. This one is a bit finer grit than number 3, so it'll bring back some of the shine that we lost while getting rid of the scratches. If you're doing this at home and you have a surface that's not as badly damaged as mine, you can always start from whatever point of this process that you think is necessary. If there are no large scratches and the problem is that you just have a bunch of little ones that are making the plastic look cloudy and banged up, then you can skip the first step and just go in with the number 3 solution. Or maybe even just the number 2 and work your way down to get that shine back. Just make sure to assess your specific conditions because you don't want to cause unnecessary damage that then you have to undo. Trust me on that, I know, because most of the things that I do on this channel are one large mistake that I then have to fix. Okay, we're almost done. Just one more step. We then again run back to the slop sink. And look at that. The shine is starting to come back. Now we grab the last one, solution number 1, and our handheld drill, and we put that away because we're done with it. For this last part, even if you have the drill, I suggest you use the microfiber cloth. This step isn't removing any more scratches, so if there's any left, you're gonna have to go back to the previous step and make sure they're gone. This part is just polishing everything so that it can make it shine, and that shine is what makes it nice and transparent again, like we want it to be. Also, I'm looking at this entire process while editing, and this acrylic has a better skincare routine than I do. I'm honestly a little jealous. All right, last wash before the reveal. And here we go. The 3 main scratches were in this area. The entire 4-step process did a great job completely getting them out and then bringing that shine back. And also, all of the other smaller scratches are entirely gone. The shine and the clarity are great, and as far as I'm concerned, this is exactly how I need it to look in order for me to use it in a frame. All right, that's all I got for you today. I'll, of course, link all of the products that I used in my description below. And if you do end up restoring something using this method, please let me know how it turned out for you and if you were happy with the results, because I'm really curious to know. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.